Welcome to the holiday edition of the PrimeLending East Meets West podcast. Fortunately, today I'm going solo. I have no co-host. So if anything goes wrong, I'll probably just blame it on my guest. Not really, just kidding, Becky. But I do have somebody that I'm really excited to have a conversation with, Becky Carver. Becky and I have known each other for many years and have formed a pretty neat friendship and working relationship. And I thought she'd kind of be a perfect guest for the holiday edition of the podcast, because we're going to talk a little bit about work. But I think the most interesting part of the conversation will be about some stuff happening outside of work. So let's just kind of dive in. So Becky, how are you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you. Wish I was a little more busy.
Yeah, well, everybody does in this business right now. So you and I have had, we've exchanged some emails and texts since you've been back, but we really haven't had a chance to visit. So this podcast is going to kind of serve as a great opportunity for me to just kind of catch up with you. But I think you've got a really kind of interesting story that I thought many of the folks listening could both benefit from, and I think kind of relate to, on many different levels. So for folks that don't know, you're in Washington State. So tell us a little bit about where you live and what's your market like.
So I live in Thurston County, Olympia, capital. Our market's tough like everybody else, but we have a good market. It's thriving. We're the number 3. I think we're the number 3 highest state out of the whole United States. So like housing market is tough. It's tough for first-time home buyers. What do you want me to tell you about me?
Well, so you kind of so Olympia. You have an office in Silverdale, and I always used to screw up the name of your other location. Was it Chehalis?
Chehalis.
So so just geographically give people an idea in Washington, where really is that at? Where's it at in relation to Seattle?
So it's halfway down the I-5 corridor, exactly halfway, Seattle to Portland.
Okay.
So if you were to head south on I-5, 45 minutes south, you'd run right into Chehalis. It's very rural. My graduating class was 29 people. I know, it's crazy. I grew up there. It's very rural, very farming community. Lots of money, though. Lots of community support. So it was a great place for me to start my career.
That's great. So you were at Prime for how many years before you ended up leaving for a bit?
13.
13 years.
13 years.
And then you left when? About a year ago?
November.
Or was it long?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in this November.
2 years.
Yeah,
okay.
2 years this month.
Okay. Yeah. And you've been back for how long?
Came back in August. So 4 or 5 months.
So you're smiling. You're happy?
I'm very happy. Yeah. It's kind of a weird story, but yeah, I'm very happy. Happy to be home, really. It just felt like, this is why
So you and I, I remember having several different conversations prior to you deciding to leave Prime. And we have a very good relationship. We just kind of talk, right? So like you don't hold your cards back. You kind of just tell me the way that it is, and I listen, and then I've always do my best to try to provide some degree of wisdom. So we had some real open dialogue about what you were struggling with, and so it wasn't a surprise that you ended up doing something a little bit different. But as I was thinking about this podcast and kind of the topic is that I think it would be safe to say that you were just kind of stuck, right? Back then when you were kind of just
very good assessment.
Yeah.
Very good assessment.
So talk a little bit about that. What were you feeling? What kind of led up to you deciding to do something else?
So, I've been doing it for 22 years, 23 years, and I'm a great, I don't mean this arrogant, I'm a great leader. I don't have troubles leading a team, But along with that comes burnout, right? Because everybody comes to you for everything, how to fix everything, how to do everything. And, I loved Prime. I loved who we were. This is going to be my second or third downtime. I had hired both of my kids to work for me. I had 2 offices. We were thriving, doing really well. But all that success doesn't necessarily fill your cup, right? So I was I was frustrated with many areas in my life, in my career, not necessarily PrimeLending. So what I knew at that point was I was not happy. Something had to change. It wasn't going to be my marriage. And I just needed something new. The weird thing was, and I think I verbalized to you the whole time, I always knew that the problem was not Prime. I knew the problem was Becky. I just didn't know what that problem was. So when I left, and it was crazy, I realized right away that part of my problem was I had to let people go, and they were people that I loved, and it really hurt my heart. And at the time that it was happening, I couldn't put my finger on that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, so when I wasn't necessarily mad at Prime. I was just mad at the market. And I was like, how many times do I have to do this? Because I have a job, but that doesn't mean the people I love around me do. And it wasn't even just my kids. It was, I had a staff of 7. And so I made the tough decision to leave. And honestly, since we're so transparent, I did a lot of research on it. And I thought I did a really good job. I was so proud of myself. And I went to a company, and the company had a ton of product, had every product we could possibly want. But at the end of the day, we couldn't execute. And as you know, that frustrates me. When you have the product but you can't execute, it made me crazy.
Well, I do know that you were being thorough, because I do remember a couple conversations we had where you went on and on and on about some of the things that you were looking for, and I thought it was great because and I kind of feel like, so I'm just going to say this. So like, I think sometimes leaving an organization that you've been at for such a long time can be a very healthy thing. It's not always a negative, and I think
Yes.
one of the tough things about working at a company like Prime, and it's a good problem to have, is that you create close relationships with people that you work with for many years. And so the toughest part of saying goodbye to people is just, you miss them. You miss the relationships and the friendships that you built up. And those remain, right? Those can endure separation like that. But, and as you talked about, you created these close relationships with your teammates, and because of the difficulty that the industry was going through, you had to say goodbye to some of them, and that's tough.
Yeah. So, it wasn't easy, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. So it ended up leaving. But here's the thing: 2 things really resonated with me, and it was my leadership team. And it's kind of weird that I'm doing this call with my favorite regional ever in America, because but I get to finally say it out there and put it out in the public. You checked on it. You checked in on me more than my management team at my own companies that I was at. And that really resonated with me. And Matt did. There are others did too. And so did my colleagues. And I did miss Prime. I missed a lot about Prime. I missed the transparency. I missed the ease of it. I missed the ability to have somebody to call. It's crazy when you go someplace and you don't have somebody else to call. Now, when we get off this, I'm happy to drop names to you, because I've talked to other people who have left, and they miss the same things, but I had the courage to come back, because it was like, I don't have a ego. I get mad, that, but I don't have this big ego. Like, I'm not afraid to say, hey, I was wrong. But I needed to leave, like you said. Yeah, because I was mad. It didn't matter if you were calling to tell me I did a great job. It was like, what do you want, Al? That was my whole bad attitude. It was so. You're like, I know.
And I appreciate that. And so let's get to the fun part. So you're at Prime. you're kind of
Yep.
stuck. You decide to leave, and
Oh,
I think what is really remarkable is how you got unstuck and
oh yeah.
and the steps that you took to do that, and then tell us a little bit about that because I think it's a really cool story.
Well, thank you. So I knew that mortgages was facilitating a lifestyle for my husband and I, right? Like we all know. But I was finally at a place where I didn't have to I, I was able to take a step away. And I have a super supportive husband and he supported it. I didn't take a step away like on purpose, but so I just started doing some researches and I knew that I needed to fill my cup by giving back. So I have somebody in my family, one of my children who struggles with mental health, and my brother died of a drug overdose 14 years ago. And I just knew I needed to start to give back. So I looked into some foundations, and the foundation that I ended up at, well, there's four of them, but the two that I mostly ended up at was for the homeless children in Thurston County, and one is for it's called the Strophe Foundation, where we raise money for the therapeutic courts for people on a last stop before they're going off to prison. We try to help them stay clean and live a productive life rather than going to prison. So if they can go through the system and get through the program, it's a win-win all the way around, right? We have better neighbors, it's a better community. And I really found when I was doing this, well, first of all, I found out I'm really good again at leading because I started putting on golf tournaments and auctions. And it's kind of cool when you raise $100,000 for something that you have nothing to do with, right? Um, and with that, I met a lady. Her name is Jenny Burton. Anybody can Google her name. She was incarcerated for 9 years. She had a drug relationship for 29 years. And she approached me while we're in the middle of this trophy organization and asked me if I would consider going into prisons with her and teach financial health, financial wellness. And I was like, I would love to do that. So every Monday I drive 2 hours and I go into a minimum security prison. I've never been into a prison in my whole life, so that was a little bit weird. And I teach to a group of gentlemen about financial wellness, about financial wealth, like how to budget, what's credit, how do we build credit, how does credit affect us. Like everybody can buy a house. If I can buy a house, you can buy a house. And what a cool feeling it is to know that I'm empowering people that when they come out, I've had two people that have come out of incarceration that have purchased homes, and I'm creating a better community around us.
That's
So
amazing.
thank you. It is
That's just
amazing.
amazing. So talk to us about the
Yeah.
first time you went into the prison. How was that? What was that like? Did you when you
Um,
went in, did you go in for a visit the first time, or were you actually meeting with inmates the first time that you went in?
I actually met with inmates the first time we went in. So it's like a classroom setting. So because it's minimum security, I mean, it's not like what you see on TV. It kind of is. I just went in through the doors, all that stuff that you do see on TV is true. And then we went into a classroom setting, and it was Jenny and I, and there was about 22 people in there, and
Hmm.
I was nervous. And Jenny teaches about how not to be a victim and how to own your own stuff regardless of where you come from in life. And then I come in and teach the financial part of it. And so I just sat back and watched. And what I learned by watching these gentlemen is that, they're just like me and you. They don't look like felons. You know what I mean? They don't have a look to them like we all think. I don't know. And they're very appreciative that people care. Um, they're like my first time home buyers because they jump through hoops. And Al, I'm not trying, at the end of the day, I'm building my pipeline in a different way because everybody that I'm doing loans for everybody that's incarcerated has a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle, brother, sister. And I know you believe this when I tell you, I have 7 loans between yesterday and today that I'm working on that are not incarcerated, but they're all friends of families of people that are incarcerated. Because
Hmm.
when you show people that you love them and that you care about them, it flourishes. I was scared. I'm not going to lie to you. I was, because my husband said, well, there's not murders in there, right? And I'm like, no, yeah, there are. Yeah. There are, because minimum security is 6 years or less. So if they've done all the hard time and they've been good, they get to come out. And
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is they're ready for the help. They're on the downside. The last thing they
Yeah.
want to do is,
So that's one thing that I was going to ask you. So, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, but you obviously have a chance to talk to these inmates who are hoping to get out and to build a life outside of the prison, and a home is central to that, right? So
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
in their mind, it's just like what I need to do, what I need to be enabled to do, is to get back into the society. And even in that situation, home ownership is the key to it. I would think
Oh, it's
oftentimes.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the easiest way they're going to catch up.
Right.
It's the easiest way they're going to catch up. And I'm sure you've heard, but there's a program out there. It's called the Covenant Program in Washington State. And if you are a person that, Native American, Black, Hispanic, you qualify for up to 20% down at 0% interest. Well, when I go in and talk about that, like, Al, it's like we're changing lives. They're changing me, and we're changing lives here. And
well, and that's
just,
yeah, and I just love that, Becky.
Thank you.
So when I had sent you a note shortly after you came back, and I just was like, "Hey, just checking in," and you sent me this, as sometimes you do. You sent me this novel, right? So I'm reading this thing, and you're talking about all these experiences that you're going through, and the first thing I thought about is like, wow, like this is like you. I never thought of you as somebody that wanted to be like a public speaker. So the fact that you're in a classroom in a prison and you're teaching financial literacy, you obviously found a place for you that brought out all these skills that you like you said, you've always been a leader. So there's never been a question of whether or not, you can lead. But I was just blown away because
Thank you.
I was just like, look at what she's doing here. And I just think oftentimes in this business, and that's why this is so perfect around Christmas. I'm so glad that we're having you on, around Christmas, because this is really about focusing on others, finding a way to bring value to your community, giving and loving people in new and creative ways, and realizing that because of the industry that we're in, we can do all that and still make a living and take care of the people, that are closest to us. In your case, getting unstuck wasn't about what's wrong with me. It wasn't this process of having to determine what am I doing wrong in my business. It's really just kind of clearing the table, so to speak, and looking outwardly.
You're right. And that's what it was. It was like, I have to figure out something where I can still do what I love to do, which is mortgages, but I have to do it for people that I want to help. That just is in my heart. And PrimeLending, one of the main reasons that I wanted to come back to Prime, amongst others, was I needed a place that was gonna help me facilitate my loans. I was so past leading and teaching loan officers, and I was like, I just need a place that's going to help me facilitate my loans. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I don't have 2 loan officers that don't want to come and work with me, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that, because I feel like I need to kind of grow this part of the business first. Does that make sense?
Sure.
But this business is taking off, and I think, and I'm not a really super big spiritual person, you know that too, but I'm going to be blessed. When we were at our last managers meeting and we were talking about how to create our business outside of what we normally do, I had no idea what was in store for me. And I think I'm the best person for it because I have no judgment. I've had bankruptcies, I've had foreclosures, and I'm not proud to say those things, but guess what? It is who I am. And because I've had my own financial stuff, who am I to judge anybody? And I'm here to help you pave the way. So kudos to PrimeLending for loving me enough to bring me back, for always checking in on me. You didn't have to do that. Matt didn't have to do that. Nobody, even Tim Elkinson checked in on me. I mean, I think that says a lot for our leadership.
Yeah.
I don't think that's normal.
Well, you're like many people here. You're a special person. You've always had a big heart. When you work around people like we were talking about earlier, you create friendships. And just because we're not working together doesn't mean that those friendships don't remain. And in some cases, they can continue to thrive. And when we have the occasion to reunite, under the PrimeLending banner, that's always a fun day too. So just to kind of wrap this up, give advice to folks that are listening that, might have been in maybe they're in a similar situation right now, where they're kind of feeling stuck. And obviously you took a very different path, so that's not necessarily for everybody, but, is there kind of one thing that you share to folks listening that are stuck as a recommendation for how they might get unstuck?
Yeah. I would say just take time to reflect and figure out what fills your cup, and don't let the financial piece of what we do hold us hostage. Like, we have to be willing to let some things go. I mean, I'm 57. I have at least 10 more years of this. And I was like, I cannot do this unless my heart is full. So be willing to go out and find what makes you tick. You know what I mean? What makes me tick? I knew that giving back was what made me tick. So I had to find something that was going to be financially, that I was going to be able to give to, that could give back, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
That I could grow around my business. So
absolutely.
And it was not easy to come to, but man, I feel like if you put yourself out there, you'll find your path. But you got to do it. You can't just show up and keep trying to grind at your computer every day.
Yeah. So remind me, you're going into the prison once a week?
I go in every Monday.
Every Monday. And there's always somebody there who needs your help.
Oh yeah. Every single time. Every single time.
That's crazy.
I can send you another big long email. I'm just kidding.
You can feel free. I always read them. No, I think that's great. Well, I really appreciate your willingness to come on and just kind of share your story. Because again, around the holiday season, I just think it's perfect.
Thank you.
The thing that motivated this podcast was really simple. Was I believe, and many others believe, that we have so many amazing employees in this company that are doing amazing things in their communities. Not only are they really great at their job, but they're great people. They're serving their communities. They're investing in their communities. They're involved in charities, churches, all kinds of things. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel around and hear everybody's stories, but not everybody has that chance. So this has been a great platform to just kind of share share the lives of folks like you. And I'm proud of you. I want you to know that. I think it's amazing what you've done.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thrilled to have you back, and wish you and Ron, your husband, and your entire family a Merry Christmas, and stay in touch and let us know how this goes. I'd love to follow up again, in a few months and hear some stories about some of the folks that you've been able to work with who, as you have noted, have gotten out of prison and then bought a home. What amazing stories. Just awesome.
You should fly out here and go with me sometime.
I'd love to do it.
Okay.
All right, Becky.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Al.
Thanks for your time. And
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Merry Christmas.
And just Merry Christmas to you. And just as a reminder, you can subscribe to the podcast on all the different platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. And we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.